This episode of the Dorking Out Show podcast is brought to you by Sex Panther by Odeon. 60% of the time, it works every time.
And the letter D, because you can't spell doping without D. When you have no shot at winning a medal in the Olympics through hard work and determination, try doping. It's the Russian word for victory.
Houston, flight is go.
Mila, let's go. SPM, safety contact.
From Assignment X, Amalgamated Storytelling, and thesoniashow.com, it's The Dorking Out Show with Christopher Allen Smith and Sonia Mansfield. Welcome to episode 7 of Dorking Out, a podcast for people who like to dork out about stories and the stories in pop culture that we love. That means movies and TV, books and podcasts, and pretty much anything else that we like to dork out about. With me today is my co-host, professional writer and author of The Sonia Show, Sonia Mansfield.
Hey there.
Hello.
With me today is my co-host, Emmy Award-winning filmmaker and nerd author, Christopher Allen Smith.
In this week's episode, we review the latest installment in the DC Cinematic Universe, Suicide Squad. Is it better than Batman vs. Superman? Perhaps they should have shot higher. What's more, is it good enough to help sustain the DC Universe? Or will it go the way of Sony's The Amazing Spider-Man connected universe, which is to say, canceled? Well, we're going to talk about that. Plus, are movies dying? Is TV surpassing movies in terms of the best kind of satisfying cinematic storytelling? And if they are, is that just fine? I have some thoughts about that. Finally, we talk about the Olympics, which started this last Friday. Did the opening ceremony have the thrill of victory or the agony of defeat? That's a reference for you 40-year-olds.
You're welcome.
All of that, plus our favorite headlines of the week. So let's get started. Topic 1. Suicide Squad, our review, and the state of the DC Cinematic Universe. This last Friday, the Suicide Squad, the third movie in DC's connected universe, which is The Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, and now Suicide Squad, came out. It was looked forward to. I think a lot of people saw this as the big movie at the end of the summer that was going to kind of redeem a not fantastic summer. And it tells the tale of some of the more famous villains in the DC comic book universe going on a Dirty Dozen style mission to do something in some city somewhere. You might be seeing some hints of how our opinion of the movie is coloring the introduction to the
There's
review.
the guys at the thing.
There's the thing, and they do the thing, and
they take the other thing.
That's right. They go into a room, and then the Joker shows up, and then he disappears, and then he's back, and then he's like dead. I don't know. So, Sonia Mansfield, you have not seen Batman vs. Superman, so you went in cold. You were really looking forward to this movie. Is that right?
Yeah, I actually thought it looked kind of good. I haven't seen Man of Steel either, so I'm really going.
So this is the first one you're. This is your first.
Yeah, but I thought this preview looked kind of fun, so I was looking forward to it. And I know you really wanted to see it, and I was like, we're definitely going to talk about this, so I'm going to go see it. And everybody else went to see it too because it made like $135 million. But I don't think. I'll be surprised if any of those people go back to see it again.
Well,
I don't think I'll be going back to see it again.
That's the thing, is this is the biggest movie opening in the history of August.
Right.
Much bigger, I'm not sure, I haven't checked it exactly, than Guardians of the Galaxy, which is Marvel's, oh my God, that might be Marvel's best movie, and they're so great, and it was such a surprise, and whatever. Suicide Squad beat it. I think Guardians of the Galaxy has a Rotten Tomatoes score in the 80s, maybe?
We're going to be talking about Guardians of the Galaxy a lot because I thought about that movie a lot watching this movie.
Well, that I think you are not the only one. I think Warner Brothers as well was thinking about that. But as of now, Suicide Squad has a 26 on Rotten Tomatoes, which is not necessarily the most perfect way to judge a movie, but it's a pretty good indication of the critical reception of this movie. So it's been a smash at the box office and a crash with critics. I'm sorry. I should have thought that sentence through in my head before I said it. Yeah, I think you texted me when you got out last night, and I think you gave this a 3 out of 10.
Yeah, I did. The movie feels... Okay, so let me just say, it's not boring. I don't want to say it's boring. It's not boring. Like, I was like, yes, this is a movie. Like, it's not boring, but it felt so empty.
Right.
Like, almost soulless. It was, I don't know, like a car, like, I don't know. It just wanted to be like a darker Guardians of the Galaxy, and it just didn't work for me. Like, first of all, it seemed really sloppy. Like, really, like, you can tell, like, there's reshoots. But also, like, just random stuff, like, why do some of them get, like, a title card introduction and then other people don't? At the beginning, did you catch that?
I did catch that. And
it's like, here's Deadshot, and it says Deadshot, and then it's like, he can do this and this and this, and he's wanted for that and this, and then they do it for Harley Quinn, and then they don't ever do it again. So it's like, here's Deadshot, here's Harley Quinn, and here's the other people.
Yeah. Yeah,
it just felt really sloppy, and I was just so disappointed.
It's an interesting movie. It is kind of all over the place, and that, Man of Steel, when it came out, and I do this as shorthand, so fans please don't hate me. Man of Steel had like a 55 on Rotten Tomatoes, so it was like people liked it, but they didn't love it, and it was all right and whatever. For me, that movie really grew on me. The more I saw it and the more I thought about it. It was definitely a different shot at making a comic book movie, and you could tell DC was really trying to do something different with their films. Batman versus Superman was just kind of all over the place, and the theatrical cut was kind of really going in this really dark, hard direction. But you could the pacing was very strange, and the kind of moments that it hit were kind of incongruous through a lot of it. And Suicide Squad kind of is the worst of all of those worlds. It is really dark, but it's trying to be fun and light. I mean, I think a lot of people, after the grimness, or what a lot of people thought was a very grim and dark and dank tone for Batman versus Superman, they were looking for they were looking at Suicide Squad for, this is the fun one. This is where all the kind of rapscallion and fun and also murderous DC villains get to do their things. They get to be irreverent and, steal stuff. And, there was that moment in the trailer where Harley Quinn, smashes a department store window and grabs a purse, and they say, hey, what the hell are you doing? And she says, we're bad guys.
Yeah.
That was the kind of tone that it promised, but what it gave was just not, you could kind of, the day the movie came out, there was a story in the Hollywood Reporter that Warner Brothers was, they've been famously nervous about this movie since Batman versus Superman came out and kind of underperformed. And what they did was they had the company that made the trailers that everybody loved make their cut of the movie, and then writer-director David Ayer made his cut of the movie, and they kind of tested them and put them together, and you can almost see the seams. It's like,
yeah,
but in like a really not fun, interesting way. It's like they build up Deadshot in this cool kind of pop arty kind of intro, then they do one for Harley, then you think they're going to do ones for others, but then they don't.
Yeah.
But it's not exactly clear why.
And then they introduce Deadshot like 4 times.
Yeah.
I'm like, we've already met this guy. Like, you can... move on to, by the way, I wrote some of these down because I wasn't going to remember their name. I love that there's a guy named Captain Boomerang. And
That's
guess
right.
what his weapon is?
That's a boomerang.
And you know why?
'Cause
Because he's from Australia. And that's what Australians do.
Well, here's the thing, Sonia. That is true, but, the boomerang was invented in Australia. So if you're going to
I
have a
know
guy that uses
that.
boomerangs, he's probably going to be Australian.
I realize that. It's just seems very uninspired to me. That's all.
Yeah, no, I hear you. It's almost like you can see the fight over the cut in the movie, and there are moments that are really fun. And this is what's interesting about all of these DC movies, is there are moments in them that are really good. Like, these are not shoddy movies. These are not thrown off and not cared about. You can tell that people care about them. You can tell people are worrying over every frame. But I think it's that kind of worry, and we've got to put our fingerprints all over it. And, when you get several levels of studio executives, plus a rushed production schedule, plus very accomplished directors that are working on them and writers that are working on them, doing all that, it's like you can see good movies that are almost there.
Yeah.
And part of me is wondering is if, and this is kind of bubbling up in the zeitgeist as a criticism of the DC movies, is that Warner Brothers saw what Marvel did and what Paramount and Disney did with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. They started almost 10 years ago now. They made a good movie in Iron Man, then they made an all-right movie in Incredible Hulk, then they made a all-right, enjoyable movie in Thor. So they just kept putting brick after brick after brick of enjoyable movies, and then they built up to the Avengers, which exploded and grabbed the eyeballs of every studio executive in town and had them scurrying around to make their own connected cinematic universe. But what I think is happening is Warner Brothers is desperate to get that big Avengers money, to get that big, huge pop of, hey, we're taking all our characters and we're putting them on screen all together all at once, and it's going to be great. But they're completely ignoring the fact that by the time we got to the Avengers, we had a whole movie to get to know Iron Man, a whole movie to get to know the Hulk, Thor, Captain America. So there wasn't any need for all these introductions, all this backstory, all this explanation. It was just, here's the bad guy. Now let's get everybody together and have fun.
Right.
And with, Batman versus Superman, it's like we got introduced to Wonder Woman throughout a lot of the movie, which was cool, but it was only so they could explain that when Wonder Woman shows up at the end and they have the big we're all together moment, it just seems very rushed. And this one, it's an hour of setting the table.
Yeah.
And I looked at my watch to kind of see it. It's an hour of getting to know all the different characters, getting little introductions, getting little moments. Then we see, Batman, Batman's in it in a flashback, but he's not really in it that much. And then we see the Joker, but then the Joker's not in it that much. And a lot of the reaction from a lot of DC fans over the weekend has been there's a huge amount that's in all these previews that everybody loves that is not in the movie.
Yeah.
And it's and that's the thing, is this movie isn't awful. It's not offensive. It's just kind of a plotting mess that's all over the place. So yeah, it's really just disappointing in a pretty significant way.
Well, I agree with you that it's not a terrible movie. Maybe my 3 was a little harsh because there's some good things in the movie. So maybe I'll talk about some of the good things. I really liked Margot Roby as Harley Quinn. What did you think?
I thought she was great. I thought this is a movie that is very satisfied with itself. It's very enamored with the idea of these are the badasses.
Right.
They're all badass and they're just so mean and bad, but we don't see them do a whole lot that's that bad. Will Smith is like, he's the baddest ass hitman in the world, but he really loves his daughter, and he's great. And
Right.
Harley Quinn is the lover of this monstrous murderer Joker, but she doesn't seem all that bad. And then we do have El Diablo, and we hear a little bit about his backstory, which just is horrifying.
Yes.
But it's just kind of like it pops out at a kind of a strange moment.
Yeah.
And then we're supposed to feel sorry for him, but then it's almost like, oh, we're done with this scene, and then we're out.
Yeah, and then it's like, come on now, let's move on to the fighting.
Yeah, it was very, a lot of very meh moments.
Yeah, so one of the things I don't understand about the movie, and there were maybe a few things I didn't understand, was what was the Suicide Squad doing exactly that couldn't be done by soldiers?
I don't know. That's the thing. All right, so
other than when Diablo like does his thing.
I don't know. Like, especially like halfway through the movie, I was thinking, why is Harley Quinn here? She's got a gun and a bat.
Yeah.
And like, what is her thing? Like, Deadshot, I get. He can.
Right.
He's the best shot in the world. Yeah, you're gonna want him. Basically, what you should do is take him and a bunch of SEALs and go do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, I didn't understand a lot of this. Scott Eastwood's character, Clint Eastwood's son, is in here, and he was in kind of a lot of the promos, and he's been doing some interviews on this. But then when you see him in the movie, it's like, who the hell is that? Oh yeah, that's the guy. He's like the fourth soldier from the left.
I didn't even know who you were talking about.
Exactly.
Like, that's how nothing he is to me.
Speaking of nothing.
Yeah, I also didn't. So Viola Davis's character, what's her name? Amanda Waller.
Right.
She wants to form the Suicide Squad to fight, like, if like an evil Superman came or something like that.
Right.
But then the big bad in this movie wouldn't have even happened if she hadn't been forming her Suicide Squad in the first place.
Right, which I think that's a little bit of a kind of an examination of intelligence, and this is a lot in the Bourne movies, where this big intelligence agency, they start this project because they think they're so smart, and then it gets out of control and actually ends up doing more damage than they were hoping to do. So I get that, but it
didn't work for me, and I thought the villain was very silly, and and there's like a forced, like, stupid love story in it.
Yeah,
it's also really dumb, and I hate. I don't want to sound like a jerk, but the stuff with Deadshot's daughter is really dumb. It's like it's too much trying to like tug on your heartstrings, too obvious, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely thought it was obvious, because there's literally a moment where Batman is about to beat up Will Smith, and the daughter steps in front of them, says, "No, Dad, don't." And then Batman says, "I don't want to beat your ass in front of your daughter," or something like this, which is like very, like, it's like, oh, Batman, he's not a monster. He's got a heart. He can be all right. But it's also at the same time just so on the nose.
Yeah.
And so, someone in the movie actually says, "What are we, some kind of Suicide Squad?" Right. It's just so aggressive to inject everyone's backstories in, to get it all set up. And that's the thing, is if this was, part of me is wondering, is if this exact movie came out and it was the 6th DC Universe movie and not the 3rd, if we would like it a lot more, if we would look past a lot of the flaws, because we would know the characters, we would have enjoyed them in other stuff, and it would be fun to see them again. And kind of like Marvel's Age of Ultron is not as, I don't think is as good. The villain's not as interesting as the original Avengers, but we love all these characters, and seeing them hang out and do stuff is cool. So it's like, it's a lot of fun. Right. There's like a level of fun that doesn't quite kick in this movie. And I think it's just because we're just getting to know the characters. We're just trying to inject all this sentiment and emotion that would better have been done in other movies. But I think, and this is the last thing I want to hit, is part of the thing is there's this big love story between the Enchantress and Rick Flag.
His name,
That's
Rick
right.
Flag.
Which is fine. That's the thing is Marvel, and for all you DC fans that are hearing us talk about Marvel, it's not because we love Marvel, it's because they know what they're doing when it comes to setting up movies.
His name's Rick Flag because they didn't want to name him Rick Soldier.
That's right. Well, that's the thing is Marvel eased the audience into the craziness of comics. We didn't get Guardians of the Galaxy with a talking machine gunning raccoon until like the 11th movie.
Right.
You know, we just started out with, hey, here's Iron Man, here's a smart-ass guy, and he's got an iron suit. There's the movie. That's all you need for this movie. And then slowly they kind of boil the lobster. Anyway, what I was going to say is, part of the problem is we're supposed to have this love story between Rick Flag and the Enchantress. And the thing is, Rick Flag is played by Joel Kinnaman, who is in The Killing, I believe.
Yeah.
And he was also in RoboCop.
Yes.
And we are going to talk about this next week, actually. He has got a perfect FPJ rating of 1. He is inert. There is nothing. When he is on the screen, he's never given a line reading. He's never given a performance. He's never given anything on screen that I've seen anywhere that I care about in any way, and I feel bad because he seems like, I'm sure he's a nice guy, but as an actor, you're supposed to be giving something to the audience.
Well, and
There's just nothing.
Yeah, and the woman playing the doctor / Enchantress is also got like a really low Freddie, FPJ.
That's right. That's Freddie Prinze Jr., which we will explain next week.
Yes.
And we have actually
she's just nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? Actually, here's the other thing. Maybe this is the problem.
And we don't even know what was she trying to do. I'm going to build a machine or something, but all I know is that here comes the shaft of light that opens up the sky and the
Right,
things.
and here's the thing, and here's the trash and a ring around it. So it's almost like this combination of Ghostbusters, ghosts in the sky thing, and the ring of grit around that we saw in Man of Steel. So, but I wanted to. I'm sorry. Did I interrupt you?
No. I have some other questions for you.
Okay, hold on for a second.
Okay.
Jai Courtney. I think you and I might have talked about this offline. He played Boomerang, Captain Boomerang. Hollywood. Jai Courtney probably has like a 5 FPJ. Stop it with Jai Courtney.
Stop trying to make Jai Courtney happen.
It's not going to happen. Just knock it off.
Right.
He seems like a nice guy. He was in the Terminator movies. He's been in I don't know how much stuff that he's not doing anything. Please stop. All right, Sonia.
Yes.
Other questions?
So why is the Joker in this movie?
Thank God you asked that. Because that's the thing the Joker is Harley Quinn's boyfriend.
Yes.
That's what makes Harley Quinn such a big deal. On the original Batman the Animated Series,
yes.
She kind of came out as kind of this girlfriend of the Joker, which is a very interesting character. And she is
a very interesting character.
And it is kind of a fantastic storytelling thread to basically have, the Suicide Squad's going on this mission, and Harley Quinn's angry boyfriend is coming after them, and it's like and this is an interesting thought, is apparently there was a big thread of the Joker. He was in this movie a lot more, and there was a thread of, my boyfriend's coming and all this and all that, and he was a much bigger part of this that got cut out.
I think it's very obvious that he got cut out a lot.
Which is...
He was all over the early marketing for this movie. He was going to be the thing.
Exactly. And that's the thing is the Joker is one of the all-time great villains. And
I don't know if this Joker is one of the all-time great villains.
I'll agree, but I'm not going to lay it at the feet of Jared Leto. I'm going to lay it at the feet of the editors, because I'm not exactly sure what this Joker was, because I think a lot of the stuff that we needed to understand it got cut.
Yeah, I think so too, because
he seems very frightening.
He didn't seem super crazy to me. He just seemed like a creep at a nightclub.
Kind of, a little bit. There was definitely that aspect of it.
Like a douchey rich boy.
Right.
Hanging, but maybe slightly crazy. He didn't seem crazy enough for me, I guess.
I don't know. He might not have seemed all that crazy, but there was definitely a weird menace from him. Like a weird vibe that you get from really dangerous people.
And the movie doesn't know what to do with their relationship.
Right.
Like, because, I mean, she's basically in an abusive relationship.
Yes.
But the movie kind of wants them to be together. And
right.
I'm like, well, I don't know if that's what I would want for her, but she's kind of crazy and messed up too.
Right.
And done awful things. So, and the camera really just lingers on her, and she's hot stuff.
Yeah.
But at the same time it's creepy, because we know that she's basically like in this abused relationship.
That's true, and I think a lot has been it is weird, and I think that's a conscious choice. I mean, a lot has been made in the comics of she really is in an abusive relationship, and this is a great metaphor for showing an abusive relationship.
But I don't think the movie thinks that at all.
I would disagree, but I will agree with you in that what is presented in the movie, if you don't kind of know the history or know the story or know the whatever, you would have a hard time finding it.
Right.
I think there were definitely some indications there, but because of the way it was edited and put together, it was problematic. So I guess I would give Suicide Squad a middling 5. Just nothing horrifying in it, but absolutely nothing special.
And I'll stick with my 3.
So I think we've done enough damage with that. Now on to topic 2. Topic 2, are movies dead? No, they're not really dead, but they are kind of dead. A certain kind of movie probably is dead, and I feel fine about that. This one comes from a self-congratulatory blog post by me, but it really is something that we should talk about. So the premise is, what I want to talk to you about, Sonia, is I'm seeing a lot of people writing about, how this is 2016 is the year that comic book movies and, boy movies and teenage movies have taken over the multiplex, which is something that I've been hearing since Raiders of the Lost Ark in 1981. But that this is the year it happens. All the mid-range adult movies, good dramas, they're all gone. It's all either, comic book movies or failed reboots or sequels to movies that we don't need, like Independence Day, and
animated movies based on apps.
That's right, animated movies based on apps. And then one of the things is that when we're looking for Suicide Squad, a movie like Suicide Squad, a kind of grim, gritty, black humor comic book movie to save the summer, that's not a good place to be. And I think a lot of movies have disappointed this year. Some of the stuff just from the last couple months is X-Men Apocalypse. Yeah, that came out.
Right.
Ghostbusters, that came out. For me, it kind of evaporated pretty quickly.
I liked it.
Yeah. So there's that. Independence Day, which I did not have high hopes for, but I had some hopes for kind of a wacky, ridiculous popcorn movie. That was awful. Earlier in the year, there was the sequel that nobody asked for to The Huntsman. So it's kind of like, that's it. And
even Finding Dory was kind of...
Finding Dory was fine.
fine.
It was all right. But that's the thing. So the idea is all these. Where are all the adult movies? Where are the movies for smart people that like good movies?
I
They're
think
all
they come out in December.
right. One, they come out in December. Two, they've migrated to television, and that's kind of a better way to do it. And one of the things that got me thinking about this, we were talking about it a little bit a couple weeks ago, is my most satisfying kind of pop culture experiences lately has been kind of the 10 episode like season of a show, like the first season of Fargo, or The People versus O.J. Simpson, or the documentary Made in America, O.J. Simpson, which is like 7 hours, but it is just so good. Or, you know, a lot of Stranger Things, or a lot of Netflix shows where they're television shows, but they don't have 25 episodes where sometimes the episodes isn't so great. It's compact. They're able to tell a story from the beginning of the season to the end of the season. Like The Night Of is another example of this, where this shortened, compact season is it's probably the ideal form for grown-up, mature, adult storytelling. And that's where a lot of these movies and a lot of the things that we used to think of, like, you know, like Kramer versus Kramer or something.
Yeah.
Or, you know, there's a million movies from the 80s and 90s that if you think about it now, they'd be 10-episode shows on FX or Netflix or Amazon or HBO, and I think they're better. Like one of the bigger movies of the last couple of years has been Lincoln. And what's famous is Spielberg had been trying to make Lincoln since the 90s. He had but he couldn't do it. And how do you tell the story of somebody's whole life in 2 hours? And he spent years and years and years trying to do this thing. So finally he decided, let's just tell the story of Lincoln trying to pass the 14th Amendment. You know, because that's all we can do in 2 hours in a satisfying way. Well, one, people didn't find it all that satisfying, even though there was a performance for the ages in Daniel Day-Lewis and Lincoln. But two, I believe Spielberg had been involved in John Adams on HBO, which is a 10-episode telling of, you know, the founding father John Adams, starring Paul Giamatti. It's like if Spielberg had made a 10-episode Lincoln story, that would have been amazing. That
probably wouldn't have got Daniel Day-Lewis, though.
I don't know. I think he could have done it. I think that's the thing is once you know, when you gin up, you know, an entire crew. I mean, my understanding is the amount of money that they spent to make Lincoln is about the amount of money that HBO does on like a 10-episode season of like a Band of Brothers or Game of Thrones, or a John Adams, a period piece where you're building this old-timey world. You're building all these sets, these roads, these whatever. But once you have it built, you can shoot 2 hours of a movie there, or you could not that much more difficulty shoot 10 hours. And I'm thinking that when it comes to these movies, television is just better. We should be taking these stories and putting them on television. And I'm not sure, you know, a lot of these film critics are lamenting the loss of these kinds of films. And I'm not sure I'm with them.
Well,
what do you think?
Well, I think that movies kind of go through this thing where they're like, they get bigger, they get louder. That's why we have 3D. That's why we got CinemaScope, like this whole thing where it's like competing with TV.
Right.
And I think we have so many options now on TV that what we're seeing in the theater, it has to be bigger, louder, crazier than you would see on TV. So I think, yeah, some of these smaller stories, more adult stories, less flashy or sexy stories are more suited to TV than I like the movie Spotlight a lot. I thought it was an awesome movie. It would have been an amazing TV series.
Exactly. That's the thing.
And one more thing.
Yeah.
It's really hard though, as like working parents with like a small child, to be like, well, let's make it our date night to go see Spotlight. Like, it's hard to make that happen. It's like, let's pay a babysitter to come to our house and watch our kids so that we can go see this, kind of a bummer movie about like exposing a sex scandal in the Catholic Church.
Right.
Like, it's really hard to make that happen. It's like not, it doesn't scream like night out.
Exactly.
Yeah. Room is similar to that too. I wouldn't want to see a Room, miniseries because that would be emotionally draining. But it's another one that's like it doesn't sound like an awesome night out.
Yeah, I agree, and that's, I'm skimming back over some of the stuff that I wrote in the blog post, and it's just like, they're, like the big legendary dramas or just the enjoyable dramas that we think of from the 80s and 90s. There's Dead Poet Society, Rain Man, Boogie Nights, American Beauty, Say Anything, Forrest Gump, Good Morning Vietnam, Heathers. Some of these are comedies and stuff, and I'm looking at that and thinking, if you had the creative team from Fargo take any one of these stories, that would almost instantly become my most anticipated thing of the next year. Like, there's a thing that you can do in 10 hours. I'm almost wondering if 8 to 10 hours is the perfect unit of cinematic storytelling. It's not so compact that you have to just hit the highlights and just rush through everything like we kind of complained about in Suicide Squad.
Right.
But it's also not so big that you kind of lose the thread of a central story. Like if you look at, one of the shows that we're loving right now, The Night Of, it's on episode 5 now, and there's 3 more coming, but you can also kind of remember the beginning and see the arc, and you can see where it's going, and it's just very satisfying. And I can't think, I was kind of going back through the dramas of the 80s and 90s thinking, is there anything out there that I would not be more interested in seeing as a 10-hour series? And there just wasn't. There's like, there was the kind of the era of the courtroom dramas, like The Verdict or The Jagged Edge or Primal Fear. And when
Time to Kill.
And when I think about those experiences in the movies, and then I compare them to the experience of watching The People versus O.J. Simpson, you know what? I have a real hard time picking movies over television when in the 90s and 80s, it was no question. They were doing nothing anywhere close to the top level of movie making back then. And now, if you say, what would you rather have? Would you rather have The Godfather or would you rather have Breaking Bad? What's better in terms of the examination of crime and the human heart and how ambition gets twisted into dark ends and stuff? It's like, that's an incredibly tough choice to make. Which one's better? So, yeah, I hear all this stuff, and I'm just not convinced that the death of this kind of movie, and while we're seeing the birth of this kind of television, is such a bad thing.
Well, I don't think that kind of movie really is going anywhere. I think they just want clickbait.
I have to disagree though. There's not a lot out there.
They come out. They come out around Oscar time.
Yeah, I don't know. We can have that. That is a discussion that we can have on our Facebook and Twitter pages with our audience. Please, audience, let us know what you think. Are certain kind of adult movies dead, and should they be dead? I say yes. Sonia doesn't have the courage to agree with me, but that's fine. topic 3, unless you've been living under a rock, and even then, there's probably an app for you to watch things under that rock. And this last Friday, you will know that this last Friday, the networks of Comcast, NBC, have been showing us the Olympics in all their million channel glory. The Rio Olympics finally opened after a lot of build-up, a lot of hand-wringing stories of is Brazil going to be able to pull it off? Sonia, did you watch the Olympics? What did you think? What do you think of the Olympics?
Well, I love to watch the Olympics because it mixes two things that I love. It makes me feel ignorant about other countries and terrible about my body. I love it. No, I do really like the Olympics. And I think one of the things that's so fun about it is it's just one of those things that you can all watch together. You know, like my husband will come in, he's interested, like the kid can be in the room. It's not like we're watching Breaking Bad and we have to like usher him off to bed or something. Like he can watch the Olympics. Right. We can all watch it together and it's fun. And, you know, of course, the stories really tug on your heartstrings and what these people can do is amazing. And so have you watched any of the events?
I have watched some of them. It's one of those things where I think I'm almost seeing a pattern in the coverage of the Olympics, which is, you know, in the lead up, whether it's the Sochi games or the games that were in Beijing, or now it's, you know, it's kind of like you have all the stories about the mean autocratic regime pushing poor people out so they can build, you know, stadiums for tourists. You got those stories. Then you got the, oh my God, they're not going to finish in time stories. And then you have the, look at the corrupt Olympic organizers, and they're just selling the Olympics off to dictators and horrible regimes. And I thought the Olympics were supposed to be better than this. But every time I watch a opening ceremony, like I did this last Friday, it's like, yeah, I get it. You know, like FIFA with soccer or football or whatever. It's corrupt and it's messed up and it's not perfect but when you see the whole world coming together like that, it's not a bad thing. It's not, you know, we talk about corruption.
And it doesn't happen that often.
Exactly. It happens 4 years, and it's when you see, you know, the Palestinian team come in, and then a couple minutes later you see the Israeli team come in right after them, and then you see Iran come right in. It's like they're all getting together for this peaceful thing. It's, you know, I don't want to get maudlin about it, but it's kind of like of all the human endeavors and all the corruption that we have on all the different levels all around the world, you know what? If there has to be a little bit of corruption to get a situation like this where all the countries come together and play games and kind of celebrate human achievement and human striving for something better, awesome. I'm there. You know, I can't be cynical about that, no matter how corrupt it is.
So what I think is, when I watch it, like say I watch diving, and they make these crazy, amazing dives. Like just, I could never do it. Like I would belly flop, like I would do a cannonball. Like I could never do what they do. And like, I'll see the dive and be like, that's amazing. And then the judge will say, well, her coach is going to be disappointed with that one.
Right.
Like, what? And then like the next one is like another perfect dive. And they're like, that's going to cost her. What? Like, I'm like so stupid about the events, basically, is what I'm saying.
Well, you know, I agree with you. But then I was watching some of the gymnastics, like the men on the pommel horses and stuff. And it was like, these guys are so jacked and so whatever. And they're throwing their body around.
Yeah.
And it's this weird thing where they're doing these amazing gymnastics. They're flipping around and, you know, they have their hands on the pommel horse and their legs are spinning around like crazy. And then they do this, you know, they must be throwing around 170 pounds. just with the strength of their arms.
Right.
And then they wobble a little bit, and then their leg hits the thing, and then they kind of stop and fall off.
Oh.
Exactly, and that's the thing. It's like, like with that one, it's like even me, fat guy eating Doritos on a couch, can see that guy screwed up, and too bad for him.
Well, I did see a guy who was on the like parallel bars or whatever, like miss the bar and fall, and I was like, okay, I can see why he's going to be docked points.
Yeah, exactly. But then it's just like, and then he gets right back up, and you see him spin his legs around, and like the
Did you laugh at him and like throw your Doritos at the like, haha, you suck?
No. See, that's the thing is I can't bring myself to that because what the guy did, and I've had things in my life where I've worked for years to achieve certain things, and actually, with this stupid book that I'm writing now, I'm conducting one of them right now, where you work for years and you don't know, is any of this going to mean anything? Am I going to put this out into the world, or am I going to try something? And is it just going to fall flat 5 minutes after I kick it out the door? And so watching these people work for 4 years, and then we get the video packages talking about them.
Yeah.
Working
their whole lives.
They've been working their whole lives to do this thing. And then we cut to them live doing the thing, and then they slip, and then it's like 4 years for that.
Yeah.
It's got to be just crushing, which is why it's so compelling to watch. But at the same time, it's like even, maybe that's the thing. It's even the losers at the Olympics it's more inspiring to watch them than, like when I think about like the showboating in the NFL or a lot of things in like, modern baseball or basketball or whatever. And then I look at this, and there's this one girl from Syria who, was like a swimmer, and she's telling the story about, oh yeah, during the war, one day I came back to the pool that I was training in, and there were holes in the roof, and there were bombs that hit the pool, but I could still swim, so I kept swimming. And it's just like, you know what? How do we get that girl?
And we're all so awful and late. We're like, I was gonna go swim, but it was raining that day, so forget it.
That's right.
Forget it. The pool wasn't heated, so forget it.
That's right. And then you have, every 4 years there's a contingent of kind of television watchers that just kind of drive me up the wall because they talk about, oh, they're just taking these sports figures and making these maudlin little story packages, so we'll care about the Olympics. And then when you see this, girl from Syria, she has this dream of swimming in the Olympics, and then she has to leave Syria on this rickety boat, and then halfway to Greece, the boat's engine fails, and it's just drifting around, so she jumps out, grabs a rope, and starts swimming and pulling the boat. It's like, you know what? That is a great story.
Yeah.
That is maudlin. That is very emotional, but I don't care. That's great.
Those are people they just have cold, dead hearts.
They do. So
go back to watching The Real Housewives. We'll watch the Olympics.
So it's, I watch the Olympics. I love them. I love the stories of the Olympics. It's, and it especially, I'm wondering if, especially in this year, in this kind of age of industrialized cynicism, if even through, the company Comcast putting these on, and even for all of their efforts to make so much money off them, you know what? I don't care. It's sweet and fun and interesting, and maybe all of the things that critics say about it are true, but it still, I think, means something. I still think it's great. So
and
I
it's
don't care.
the few things that everybody watches.
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't have, we get like, maybe the Super Bowl,
right?
The Oscars, and the Olympics.
Yeah. It's
and Sharknado.
That's right. That's right. See, yeah. I don't know. I just think it's great. I don't really have any more interesting things to say about it other than watch the Olympics. Tell us what you think. Tell us if we're wrong. If you think we're wrong about the Olympics, maybe keep it to yourself. That brings us to the closing topic of our show, our favorite headlines of the week. Sonia Mansfield, what is your favorite headline of the week?
My favorite headline of the week is fans start a petition to shut down Rotten Tomatoes because Rotten Tomatoes mean to DC movies. And this really bothers me for some reason. I'm like, it bothers me because
they don't understand math.
Yeah, because they don't understand math, but also, so they really like DC movies, apparently. So they really like Suicide Squad, and they're very upset that it has 26% on Rotten Tomatoes. Why don't they think it's okay for them? Like, you can still like a movie if the critics don't like it.
Right.
That's okay. I like lots of movies the critics don't like. It's okay. Like, why go this far? Like, we joked earlier about like using your powers for good. Why don't these people use their power for good? This is not good.
You know what?
Like, I'm gonna sign more than 20,000 people have signed this stupid petition to shut down Rotten Tomatoes, which, by the way, is a website that is perfectly fine website that can do whatever it wants. It doesn't. Their petition means nothing.
Well, yeah, there's several things I love about this, and I'm going to try to be quick. One, Rotten Tomatoes is nothing but adding up all the critics from, publications and websites spread out across the thing. Usually for a big movie, about 250 critics make up the critic score for Rotten Tomatoes. So the only thing Rotten Tomatoes does is add up the opinions of those 250 critics. That's it. It's math.
Yeah.
It really is averaging a bunch of critics out. So the idea that they're writing this petition and they don't even understand the thing that they're raging against.
No, they don't.
And I think
this could have fallen under what is the internet outraged about now.
Well, exactly. That's the thing. Is this bubbled up originally with the Batman versus Superman, and there was this big conspiracy theory among a certain set of DC fans that Disney is paying off all these critics.
This is reoccurring because they said that about Ghostbusters too.
Exactly. It's just there's a certain kind of madness that has been unleashed on the internet in like the last 3 or 4 years, and I know that there's been anger and whatever in misogyny on the internet way back. However, something's happened in the last 2 or 3 years where it's just gone nuts because this fan petition. What they don't get is, one, Warner Brothers is one of the biggest companies on earth. If you could get good press by paying off critics, believe me, they would have tried it. Two, do you know who owns Rotten Tomatoes?
I'm going to guess Warner Brothers.
Time Warner owns Rotten Tomatoes. So if if there was some sort of conspiracy afoot in Hollywood to adjust the score of a movie, you can bet your favorite Batman action figure that Warner Brothers would have figured out a way to jerry-rig the scores for Rotten Tomatoes to make their big tentpole cinematic universe much better scored than it is. It's just absurd.
Yeah, they're not some like little rinky-dink film company with no money.
That's right.
That's put out their student film.
They've got vast amounts of money that they're laying into these movies.
Yeah.
I mean, you know what? Here's the thing.
That's why it was my favorite. There's also another petition going around right now where people are signing it because they don't want Turner Classic Movies to show movies from the 80s and later. And I was like, you shut up and you let Turner Classic Movies do what they do best.
All right, Sonia. So you co-host another podcast called Old Movies, New Beer.
Yes.
With your wonderful husband,
yes.
David Tracy. What is his rule on how old a movie can be, or how new a movie can be, in order to get on Old Movies, New Beer?
If you're insinuating that my husband started this petition, you are wrong.
I'm not insinuating it, Sonia. I'm flat out saying it.
He would never do that.
The hell he wouldn't. This seems so perfectly tailored. I've heard this exact argument come out of his mouth.
His rule is, like, it has to be 80 and earlier for the podcast.
Exactly.
Yes, but
it lines up.
Yeah, but he doesn't care about what Turner Classic Movies shows. He would never start this petition. How dare you?
Are you sure? Are you sure?
You know what? I don't know. I don't know everything he does.
That's right.
I'm gonna go check his browser history for this.
What I bet you're gonna find is the starter of this petition is named Tracy David.
I'm gonna go in his browser history to find if he started a petition to get.
Make sure you do not read
about. Yeah.
Don't read what else you find in his browser history.
Right.
While I go on to my favorite headline of the week.
Yeah, what's yours?
Just came out a couple hours ago, which is the head of the Fox network, has said that they are deep in negotiations with Gillian Anderson, Chris Carter, and David Duchovny for another season of The X-Files.
And what do you think about that?
I wish they would not do that.
Really?
I am a huge fan of reboots or remakes or revivals or whatever if the creators or whoever's doing it has a good idea and has some juice left in the tank. And while I was very excited for the new season of The X-Files, the 6 episodes that came out earlier this year when they came out, and I think we talked about it on the Pop Show, upon reflection, not a big fan. It left kind of a bad taste in my mouth, and having that hang out at the end after all, everything that's been put to bed, I'm just not excited.
So you don't want them to have a chance to maybe redeem themselves?
I don't know if they can. And I was thinking about it. If they could have redeemed themselves or if they could have done something special or whatever, I think they would have done it. I think we would have seen it. I think we can see what the level that they can perform at in this modern television age. And I was just kind of okay. And I think the other problem is kind of what we talked about in Jason Bourne a week or so ago, which is, the first 3 Jason Bourne movies are kind of a perfect trilogy where there's a mystery that's laid out in the first one, and through the movies he kind of solves the mystery and figures it out. So the 4th movie is just kind of, I guess we're just filling in the gaps. There's no central mystery. There's no drive to the story. It's just kind of like, why are we here? The X-Files is kind of like that. It's built on this mystery and this conspiracy, and a lot of that was, answered enough in the original series. Right. So then, especially with a series built on a mystery, a lot of it comes down to, well, you thought you solved the mystery, but really you didn't. And there's this other part of the mystery that you have no idea about, which, it's this kind of minor little subsection of this one thing in the mystery, and it never is very compelling. It's not this huge overarching thing. A lot of the satisfaction that in a mystery or a conspiracy story is finding out the little moments and gradually pulling away the cloth, the shroud to see what's really there. And if you've seen the run of the X-Files, you got it. Yeah. Aliens came down a long time ago. They did some weird stuff, had this weird alliance with humans, these corrupt governments and whatever. Boom. Bing, bang, boom, that's it.
I think it's funny that they did the 6 episodes. I watched half of them, didn't watch the other half.
Yeah.
I thought it was perfectly fine. It was fine, but not enough to make me finish it. And then I read the headline that they want to do more, and I was like, "Oh, cool!" And I'm like, "I'll watch half of those episodes too, and not finish it."
Well, you know what I would like? I would be really interested to see you finish. It's only 6 episodes, Mansfield. My God. Finish those episodes, especially the last one, and then you tell me if you're looking forward to more X-Files.
Right. Okay.
So.
I'll try to do my homework.
That's right. That's Dorking Out, kids. The show where homework is to watch television. Well, I think that's a good note to end on. Sonia, is there anything that you would like to say?
I'll just say goodbye.
Bye! The Dorking Out Show is on Twitter at Dorking Out Show, where you can find Chris at Jet Jurgens and Sonia at The Sonia Show. You can read about Sonia's random adventures at thesoniashow.com and track the slow and creeping progress of Chris's novel and his other hijinks at jetjurgens.com. You can find out more about the Dorking Out Show at dorkingoutshow.com. While you're over there, you can support us by giving us a review on iTunes. We have a handy-dandy iTunes link to whisk you right back to 2007, where you can leave your review and 5-star rating in iTunes. We'd do it for your podcast. Want to dork out even more? Well, you can sign up for our newsletter, where you'll get all the headlines we use as fuel for the show. That's it for this week. Thanks for listening.